What's your fuck this, I quit story? My father's story. He was a 22-year-old millwright, and he had been working for the company for 4 years. He asked for a raise because one was given to a coworker who had the same job. He was told that his coworker has kids and a family to provide for, and that's why he was given a raise, and since my dad had no children at that time, he didn't need one. My dad applied for a job that paid almost twice as much with great benefits. He gave in his notice and the manager said, "Will you stay if we give you the raise you wanted?" He declined and worked for the second company for 35 years and retired last December. I was fractured my orbital socket in an industrial accident. Another employee lost focus at the wrong time, was supposed to wait for a hand signal and didn't. We had been working over 90 days straight of 13 to 14 hour shifts and living in crappy motel a 45-minute drive from our work site. We were supposed to be on a rotation where we didn't work more than 3 weeks at a time. It was a close call and could have been a lot worse. I'm glad I saw it coming and had time to at least try and get out of the way. I got sent away after a night in the air while the rest of that crew continued to work. After spending 2 or 3 days at home, the boss called to say that he needed me in Alaska in 2 days and that my flight was already booked. Told him I quit right on the spot. Damn, what kind of job was that? Drilling. Worked at a Spencer's Gifts for a bit during uni. I was working and saw that I was scheduled for an evening shift the day before a morning exam, so I asked the manager if I could switch. She said no, the schedule is already made up. Went back and forth trying to negotiate with her. She ended with, "You're going to have to decide what's more important, the shift or your exam." Lol, she thought one shift was worth an entire grade to a course you were paying for. I had a boss do the same. I was hired as a bartender, but my actual duties were closer to cleaning staff / waitress / hostess and kitchen staff. Paid from 5 PM to 12 AM, was told to come in at 3, and paid for prep. At 3 AM I was talking to the manager telling him I was taking myself and my BF home. I was his ride. He says we couldn't because there was customers. I said I had morning classes and I wasn't be paid anyways for that time. So I told him to start serving them then. He said he'd pay me for overtime, so I took the cash for the overtime and left. He was a shitty manager and a drunk. He lost his job and his wife, his coworker too, shortly after. Karma sucks. Edit. I know it was illegal, I was working off the books, so I couldn't complain, and he knew it. I was broke university student, but I reached my limit that time. I will never work any job with unpaid prep time. Joined a call center with the obvious shady pay structure. They said the calls are inbound, so I thought, hey, that's not too bad then. Turns out the inbound calls were generated by their call system, indirectly implying that they were Google, but never saying so, and we were directed to use some dubious answer if someone asked back, "Are you Google?" After getting yelled at and cussed out and constantly getting people who had been called many times before and were clearly irate, I just got up and left in the middle of the day. I also complained to Google that these guys were pretending to be Google, and these guys were shit scared of getting complaints like that. Seriously fucked up people. We were directed to use some dubious answer if someone asked back, "Are you Google?" Now I can't stop thinking of the ways their legal team has directed people to answer that. "We are not Google, you could call us Google." Yes, well, we sure aren't, Bing chuckle. If it's like the calls we get, it would be more like, "You're calling from Google? We are calling about your Google Maps listing, it usually takes 2 or 3, but are you calling from Google, or do you work for Google S?" Until they admit that they aren't, and then they continue with their sales pitch, which is just another worthless online listing. My first job was at a fast food restaurant. I only lasted about 3 months. The manager was sleazy, the employees were straight up lazy. I had to mop up one day. There was an area in the kitchen where you kinda have to lean forward so you can slide the mop under a counter. The manager decided to come out of the office and just stand behind me and watch. I looked at him and asked, "Is there something wrong?" He said no, but just wanted to make sure I cleaned correctly. Right, because there was no worry about how well I cleaned the rest of the kitchen, but now that I'm bending over there is. I immediately stopped and walked out. I'm guessing you are female? I am. So, your manager was a creep on top of everything else. I don't know what the law is over there, but that's harassment. See, technically speaking it's not harassment, but if she's underage charges could be pressed, but evidence would be required. My first job. I was assigned to a specific area, and I thought I was doing my job well. One Monday, I was pulled into the office and asked why, whatever thing it was, I don't remember, hasn't been done for the last 2 weeks. I replied I wasn't aware it was part of my duties. My supervisor said he was putting me on a mandatory non-paid vacation for 2 weeks. No warning, no explanation on why I all of a sudden had to do work for a different department. So I said, don't worry about it, I quit. It was a lousy job anyway, I was only getting paid 18 hours a week, but was doing more than that. 16 and stupid, I guess. Low-level jobs always tend to flat out not train you in half of the job, and then act shocked when you don't know about the thing they didn't train you in. But if they don't act shocked, how can they pretend it's not their fault? I really hate that this isn't a joke, but actual manager policy. Middle management 101. Suck up to the boss and point the finger at everyone else. People who manage teenagers are one step above teenagers. The qualifications are that you never miss a shift and you can tolerate abuse from the customers. Competence is secondary. Got a summer job while I was in high school at a place that made fiberglass tanks. I was told I'd be doing groundskeeping and yard work. Figured I'd scored an easy gig of bombing around on a ride-on mower and whatnot. Nope. The first day I show up, in a t-shirt and jeans, I was told the yard equipment wasn't ready. So they had me cut raw fiberglass for 8 hours with an X-Acto knife and no PPE. Being a dumb shit kid, I didn't immediately quit, and did this for 3 more days. At least after the first day I'd brought my own gloves and long sleeve shirt. However, on said fated day 3 was when they were doing tank coatings. So about 10 feet away from me are 2 dudes in full PPE. We are talking coveralls, rubber gloves, glasses, face shields, and respirators. 10 feet away from me, in a poorly ventilated room, spraying the exterior of a tank with presumably fiberglass coating. I only made it a few hours before having to go to the bathroom to puke. Was told to quit being a pussy and go back out on the floor, so I fortunately had a moment of not being a stupid kid and said I quit and walked home. Both parents were mad when I told them I'd quit. Jokes on them though, because a few years later, that company killed 2 dudes. A guy asphyxiated while working inside one of the tanks, and the person that tried to rescue him also ended up dying. Whole place got shut down permanently. I hate companies that pull this bait and switch shit. Like, you got hired to do the yard work, not to cut fiberglass. It's like companies who say they hire you for one position and then immediately put you on sales, even if it's not at all what you were hired for. I got hired on at Walmart as a part-time sales associate. Got full-time hours, and found out after I quit that they were giving me the responsibilities of a supervisor while paying me as an associate. Sounds about right. The hour ladies were great. My direct manager was a nice woman, just overworked herself and constantly forgetting things because she had about 50 tasks to attend to on any given day. All of my same tier coworkers were nice, but the rest of the management team were complete cuntbags, as was the majority of the customer base. I used to work for Walmart. Literally the worst employer I've worked for.